When stories are no longer told and retold, the culture fades and the people are forgotten. We are not shy about remembering out loud our story. The National Film and Video Foundation, as an agency of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, was created to ensure the equitable growth of South Africa's film and video industry. Our vision is embedded in an inclusive, diverse and sustainable audiovisual ecosystem that tells South African stories to local and global audiences. We are the custodian of South Africa's film and video industry, committed to ensuring its equitable growth. The Nfvf loves South African film and lets stories speak. Ours is mission towards greatness as we seek to collaborate and enable the development and promotion of a transformed and thriving audiovisual industry, to increase the number of South African films and previously disadvantaged individuals involved in curating and producing them, to increase the number of those trained in our beloved industry, to increase audience access to our films, to promote our film industry locally and abroad, to promote social cohesion through film, ultimately, our nation's stories.
Mina ngumluleki.
Ngisikusaba mluleki. Uwes uzohlala.
Wat verstaan jy nie? Jy hoor nie. Jy's 'n immigrant in jou eie land.
Ours is a mandate that allows us to be an enabler of the audiovisual sector by providing funding in the areas of production and development, marketing and distribution, and education and training. Through this, we empower the broad spectrum of filmmakers, from the experienced to those with limited experience and new entrants.
Let us walk to Johannesburg!
Wrong yonke lento le. Yonke lento le ayilunganga.
Listen one, don't think, just jump.
Ours is a directive that implores us to be a thought leader by impacting industry growth through policies and driving a knowledge hub through relevant research. A story is everyday, its power timeless, its landscape endless. In South Africa, that story is shaped through a broad spectrum of thriving locations, where Gauteng is the gateway to film locations and production support. The Western Cape, a globally leaning location hotspot, and KwaZulu-Natal, the kingdom on which our stories are staged. The Nfvf has ensured that authentic South African stories are shared with diverse global audiences through 10 co-production treaties: United Kingdom, Canada, Italy, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Netherlands, Brazil, with 144 produced since the dawn of the new democracy, most notably United Kingdom, Canada, Germany. Our story isn't told by us alone. We accelerate our impact through key partnerships such as those with the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission, the Gauteng Film Commission, and the Eastern Cape Development Corporation, which all offer grants and equity financing. The Industrial Development Corporation, which can invest up to 49% equity in commercially viable stories.
Hey, mangibizwa naledi mina. Ansinaledi mina.
San julle kantine hierdie man.
Ja. Ja, somewhat.
As daar nie meer omdraai nie.
There is relief in storytelling and gratitude in receiving. Always, it is rewarding, with the Department of Trade and Industry providing competitive incentives for shooting productions in South Africa. South Africa's story has transformed, reformed, and reignited a backdrop for shared experience and common differences. Blood Diamond. Safe House. Long Walk to Freedom. Dark Tide. Invictus. Black Sails. It's a melding of diverse cultures, of vibrant people, dreams of a rainbow, set against a thriving canvas, colored by an audiovisual industry with profitable returns, in deepening relationships, bridging divides, and platforming South Africa's stories. We see ourselves united, family, friends, communities, all. Let the stories live on.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Onke Dumego, and I am the Head of Operations at the National Film and Video Foundation. This afternoon, we're going to be taking you through the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, a program which we facilitate as the National Film and Video Foundation, an agency of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. As a result of the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the audiovisual industry, the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture sought to achieve sector recovery through the first installment of the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, otherwise known as PSP1. The Nfvf was given an allocation of 140 million in order to create 8,000 jobs. Given the assistance it provided practitioners in the long road to recovery still ahead, the Nfvf will continue to administer the PSP2 and PSP3 over the financial years 2022-23 and 2023-24 respectively, which are collectively referred to as PSP3 on behalf of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. Through the program, the goal is to assist practitioners in executing projects given the ongoing financial constraints brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, assist companies that incurred losses due to the nationwide lockdown restrictions, assist with skills development, especially in the area of scarce skills, and create and retain jobs through stimulus support. Stream 1, which practitioners can apply for, is the production open call. And under this project, we will consider formats that will cover all formats across the production spectrum. So feature films, TV films, TV feature series, animation projects, and web series, just to name a few. So the ideal projects should be those that have the ability to employ at least 10 or more people. And the projects that will be considered are those that are realistically implementable within 1 year for Stream 1. The call will be open to all South African productions, inclusive of co-productions. And this stream has been allocated a higher budget, really to reflect the demand and a target of the most jobs, as this stream had already created under PSP1. So under this stream, we have allocated 113 million, and the target for the Nfvf to create is 7,000 jobs. So for production funding, it is projects that will be considered which can prove that they can create at least 10 or more jobs. And overall for the stream, there is 113 million that is available with a target of 7,000 jobs overall. These are some of the requirements that will be considered in the applications that are submitted in order to make sure that all of the applications meet the compliance merits. However, you are encouraged and strongly encouraged to see the full list of all the requirements on the Nfvf website under the news tab, where the merits of the call are listed, and also through the Nfvf funding portal, which is available through the home tab on the Nfvf website. The second stream is the Skills Development Open Call. So the Skills Development Open Call really covers initiatives and proposals, including graduate development programs with a demonstrated job creation ability for a period of 3 months. So these projects that will be considered will really be projects that seem to address the skills gaps that are prevalent in the industry, and seem to address the need to close those skill gaps. There is 20 million that is allocated to the stream, with a targeted job creation spec of 1,300 jobs. With the requirements for this call, in terms of compliance verification, all of these requirements are fully listed on the Nfvf website. This is just an overview of some of them via the news tab. Within the call, they're also fully listed on the Praxis portal, which is available, the Nfvf funding portal, which is available via the home tab on the Nfvf website. The third stream is the marketing and distribution open call. So this really focuses on distribution strategy proposals such as public screenings, film festivals, markets, and these types of events that really target job creation. Under PSP1, I think we were more broad in terms of our consideration under this call, but we really are committed to meet the need to create as many jobs as possible, which is why we've decided for this call to really focus the funding on the types of events and activations that elicit distribution opportunities for film practitioners, so such as film festivals or film markets, or a combination of the two, and public screenings as well. The total budget allocation is 12 million for this, and the job creation target is 700. Across all the three streams, there is quite a considerable focus for the Nfvf on people living with disabilities, on women, youth, and previously disadvantaged individuals. Applications that really seem to emulate the upliftment of those four sectors of society will tend to stand a better chance. So it's youth, women, people living with disabilities, and overall previously disadvantaged individuals. So we really do encourage applicants to make sure that their projects speak to some, if not all, of those marginalized groups. These are some of the requirements under this call, but again, as with the other streams, all of the merits are fully listed on the Nfvf website via the Praxis portal. What's key to communicate as well with PSP is that they know capped amounts. Usually with the Nfvf funding cycle, those of you who are familiar with it, you will be familiar with the fact that per core funding pillar that we fund, or per stream that we usually fund as the Nfvf, we do have capped amounts. Because of the importance of job creation in this, and our understanding that applicants will make sure that they merit their budgets with the amount of jobs that they can realistically create in the time frames allocated, it is important for us to also consider the fact that applicants would be able to apply for typically a lot more that they would generally apply for, on the basis that they could contain more jobs within the projects that they are applying for. So please do note that there are no capped amounts, but it is absolutely imperative for applicants to understand that your budget really has to make sense in terms of the overall project that you're applying for funding for, and it has to be merited by the intended jobs that you intend creating through your project. This is just an allocation of the summary of the allocated amounts we have per stream. And the closing date is the 29th of July at 5 p.m. For those of you who are new to PSP and would like to know how you apply, those of you who have applied before and would just generally need a refresher, these are just some 6 key steps in how to go about that. First of all, you'd go to the Nfvf website, nfvf.co.za, and go to the blue tab on the holding slide called Online Funding Application Portal. Once you get to the Online Funding Application Portal, if you are new to the process, you would register. It's a very simple registration process. If you are a returning soldier, you would log in with your details and then go to the next step. And the next page would basically indicate the 3 streams that you could apply for, either production open call, skills development call, marketing and distribution call. In case this is a question that does come up later, practitioners are invited to apply in each stream. You are not limited to apply in only one stream. Once you have logged in or you have registered, you will go to this tab, which will indicate your project registration, and you will register your project. It's imperative that, I think, as an applicant, you do not stop at this process of project registration. We often see quite frequently how applicants register their projects, I think, with the intention of completing the application process, and don't quite get to the process of completing it. So once it's registered, we will definitely note it as a registered project, and you'll be issued with the project number. And once you're issued with the project number, then you can come back and you can complete your full application process at a time when you have the time to complete it. But we do encourage you to do the process of registration and the process of completing your application at the same time. So for a complete application, these are just some of the key documentation that is required. And if this is the documentation that is required, we strongly advise that you make sure that you have it contained within your application. These are just some tips and reminders in terms of doing the application for this process. You have to make sure that all your documents are eligible and valid. Your certification must be within 6 months where it is requested. Your tax pins or tax certificates have to be on the SARS letterhead. These are just some of the important tips and reminders that we see applicants sometimes trip over. They've sometimes tripped over these historically. So please just adhere to the requirements of the call. You can also apply to be an advisory panel member. The advisory panel members essentially will fulfill the statutory role of advising and recommending projects for the PSP grant based on the merits of the applications received. The advisory panel members will advise on any matters relating to the 3 funding streams. Stream 1 being production, Stream 2 being skills development, Stream 3 being marketing and distribution. Members can be nominated by any member of the public, and individuals are also encouraged to nominate themselves. Nominees who will enhance the diversity of the advisory panel are particularly encouraged to apply. Advisory panels shall consist of individuals who have achieved a distinction or have special knowledge and experience in the funds of production, skills, development, and marketing and distribution, particularly in the industry. What's key to mention here before we go any further is the fact that the diversity, which I just mentioned, is quite a critical part when it comes to being an advisory panel member. Because while we aim to seek as much diversity as possible and as many applications as possible, particularly from film practitioners in the outlying areas of the country as well, it's equally important for us to ensure that we have diversity in terms of the pool of advisory panel members, because a diverse panel comes with a diverse and kind of rich value of expertise and insights that may not be contained in a panel that is not diverse enough in terms of gender, in terms of demographics, in terms of experience. So that diversity can also be interpreted in many ways, but it's absolutely important that we get people in the industry maybe who have never been part of this process before, but who we know would add a lot of value in order to merit the type of applications that are approved for funding. Your duty as an advisory panel member would essentially be as follows. Once the Nfvf has acknowledged and approved your application to be an advisory panel member, the Nfvf will allocate advisory panel members to the different streams as either indicated, or will, if you're someone who's expressed that you have expertise across all three, based on the numbers that we were lacking, then we will allocate you to a stream that needs more advisory panel members. But if you have already indicated quite clearly that you want to do stream one, that's fine as well. Once you've been allocated, you'll be given projects to review. On average, of all the projects that are reviewed, each project needs to be reviewed, I think, an average of 3 times, so by 3 different people. And once the projects have been reviewed and your scores have been allocated, your scores will be allocated by yourself through the online funding portal, through Praxis. The Nfvf will collate all of those scores and kind of summarize and package them quite succinctly but very accurately, not leaving out the important aspects, such as any comments that you would have left, which are extremely important, and obviously the scores that you have indicated. The collation of your comments, your individual comments and your individual scores will be shared with you ahead of an advisory panel member sitting, which essentially will be the meeting where you will come together with other advisory panel members for your stream to discuss the merits of the projects that you had either recommended for funding or not recommended for funding. And those meetings function in the way that advisory panel members would deliberate on each project and the scores one by one until there's a full consensus reached on all the projects that have been recommended for funding. Once that process is complete, the Nfvf will create a report that will be submitted to the PSP Council, who will then give final approval for the documents for the projects that had been recommended for funding by the advisory panel. So that is essentially the process and how it would proceed. But for those of you who have proper expertise, long-term expertise in the industry, and think you could give some key value and key insight in evaluating these projects, it would be greatly appreciated if you apply. So for stream one, these are some of the competencies that we are looking for. Again, if you go to nfvf.co.za and through the news tab, through the call for advisory panel members, all the information is listed there. Stream two, skills development. These are the types of skill sets and competencies that we're looking for in order for someone to really truly give merit to the evaluation of projects. For stream three, these are the competencies again that we're looking for. All of this is contained again on the Nfvf website via the news tab through the call. So there are letters of nomination that will be required in order for the application process to be complete. And those should clearly describe the candidate's specific expertise and qualifications related to the criteria. And the nomination material that we need should include a letter from the nominee indicating a willingness to serve, and a brief statement of the nominee's qualifications, either in a bio format or a full CV. So essentially, it's the nomination letter that we need, if it's a nomination from somebody else, then we do need a confirmation of you willing to serve in the context of your nomination by somebody else, and the CV. You can also reply. You can also nominate yourself, which then obviously will imply your willingness to serve if you nominate yourself, and then just attach together with that your CV. So your nominations should be forwarded to psp@nfvf.co.za, and any related queries that you have can be emailed to the email addresses mentioned there. The closing date is the 29th of July. The initial date was the 22nd of July. However, that was extended. So both the project funding call closes on the 29th of July, as does the advisory panel member call. Thank you. Any questions?
Afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are talking about PSP, which is the President's Stimulus Fund, and we're here to answer any questions that you might still have as we draw close to the deadline, which is the 29th. My name is Yolanda Ngokotwana, currently the head of industry development at the National Film and Video Foundation, and I'm joined by my colleague Onke, who will introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Onke Dumeko. I'm the head of operations. So we hope that that overview has given you enough insight into the PSP project that we're administering for this year. But we do note that there are some questions, so we'll just be going through a Q&A process right now together with my colleague Yolanda. So I see Ntsikelelo Mavata has a question. He says, I realized I chose the documentary category on the portal. I'm trying to change it to feature film, but I can't. Please advise what I should do. Should I continue with it or should I change it?
So Ntsikelelo, because you've already started the application, I mean, I would say at this moment, please email the Nfvf. You can email Tandekile, h@Nfvf or Manti at Nfvf, just to assist you with that particular application, because I think you want to follow the right stream, or rather the right genre. So gather all your documents and then just email them to say you've made this mistake, and then you should be able to carry on your application.
All right, thank you, Yolanda. Radio Yabantu says, when can one realistically plan to start implementation? December 2022 or January 2023? I think it depends on what stream you're applying for. So if you're applying for stream 1, the realistic time to start would be Jan-Feb of next year. Whereas if you're applying for stream 2 and 3, it would be towards the end of November or December. So it really depends on the stream for which you're applying. Radio Yabantu also says, when do the projects need to be finished by? So again, it depends what stream you are applying for. Stream 1, you need to prove that you can create at least 10 jobs within 1 year. And stream 2 and 3, you have to prove that you can create at least 10 jobs within 3 months. So for those of you who had applied through PSP 1, right? So the first time we did this, you would have noticed that for all 3 streams, the requirement was 3 months. But we took a lot of learnings from the first iteration of PSP, and it really became apparent for us that, especially for stream 1 and the timelines involved in them, we needed to just allocate more time. We've also opened up PSP this time for productions that are already underway, not necessarily productions that really have to start from the beginning. So for stream 1, it's within 1 year. For stream 2 and 3, it's within 3 months. From Sunisani Shibambu, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. For marketing and distribution, do we need to submit proof of right to market and publicity and publicly screen the movie? So you don't need to submit it now for your application, but we will require it later, at a later period during the contracting period. So you don't have to necessarily include it now in your application. Again, from Tsunisani Shibambu, what project plan are you looking for in marketing and distribution? Is it an implementation plan or more like a business plan? Okay, so for stream 3, this year we're focusing on distribution elements. In other words, film events, right? So public screenings, film festivals, film markets, because they have the potential to create more jobs. as opposed to someone applying for marketing funding to produce some collateral, right? You'll tend to create a lot more jobs with those types of distribution elements that are typically film events, public screenings, film festivals, film markets. So in terms of a project plan, a project plan essentially would give the overview of how you set out to execute, right? So when you're saying, yeah, is it an implementation plan or more like a business plan? It's more like an implementation plan because it sets out from the beginning of your project, what are the key elements that you seek to target and execute per key gate of your event so that you can see it through. So it's more of an implementation plan. Remember, there are other elements that are involved in your application. So there is the budget that you have to submit, right? There are the CIPC documents and your tax PIN certificates and all of those things. So those elements kind of make up for the business plan, if you understand what I'm saying, because we are not evaluating the merits of your organization. You are applying through a company. We are evaluating the merits of the project, the specific project that you need funding for. So when you put together your project plan, think of it as an implementation plan.
Thank you, Anke. And then we have a question here from Aliki, who says that, do all the people that the individuals need to be named? Yes, all the jobs that you are creating, you need to specify the roles that the people will have and what they'll be doing and for how long within the project, because as you will remember, the President's Stimulus Fund is about job creation. So we need to be able to quantify those jobs, both in terms of the roles, the amount being paid, as well as the duration in which people are employed for. So your second question being, what is the difference between the synopsis and the project summary? Really, it is the length, because then the project summary would be at least half, the synopsis would be half a page, whereas for documentaries and either, because we're looking for projects across genres, which is documentaries, web series, and as well as pilots. So the project summary would be more extended, which would maybe more be closer towards your outline, so which might give detail. And just all the projects that we are looking for, they have to be ready for production. For this particular call, we are only looking for projects that are ready to be implemented, isn't like ready to go into pre-prod as soon as they are approved. So won't really have time to then do the development. So with that, those documents that you submit, hence the project summary for for the documentary, and whereas the other guys would still for narrative would submit a script. So hopefully that answers your question. I think we have another question. I hope I don't pronounce your name wrong. Tosi, saying, I am struggling to register. Who can I email? So just in terms of that, I'm not sure at what point of the application you are struggling, but you need to go into the Nfvf website and then click on apply online, which it will take you to the landing page of our Praxis system, and then you have to select the PSP application, and then it will ask you to first read, it's like a policy, and then you have to accept the terms that you have read, and thereafter, only after you've accepted and read the call, it will then take you to the application. Of course, if you are still struggling, then please email psp@nfvf.co.za. I would also advise that you try and do that by today, because also we are left with 2 days of application, so you really don't want to leave it for Friday or tomorrow late. So try and apply now, and so that there is enough time to help you with other glitches that you might encounter, or other areas where you might not be sure what needs to be submitted. And then another question that we have is, can I apply as a company, or am I allowed to apply as an individual? You can apply both you can apply either as a company or as an individual. However, you just need to make sure that if you're applying as an individual, that all your tax clearances as an individual, that everything tax compliance, those things are in order. If you're applying for the company, it has to be the same. You just have to ensure that whatever you're applying as, the paperwork flows and that it supports that, so that you do not encounter non-compliance. Sometimes what we find out is that someone will apply as Yolanda and then the tax clearance is under a company. Please try and avoid that and ensure that if you're applying as Yolanda, the tax certificate, rather we don't send a certificate, but a PIN that you send is, is aligned to that. So make sure that there's cohesiveness in your application. And yes, you may apply for the different streams. You can apply for stream 1, 2, and 3 if you have different projects, but you can't use the same project to apply for different things. Like you can't use one project and apply for production and marketing and training, but you can apply for different projects. But within that, we're not saying you will be approved for all, because ultimately the funding is the same. So it may be a point of one can be prioritized depending on which one is stronger out of the two streams, and also depending on the need in terms of the job. So you can apply for more than one. I don't know, Anke, if you want to take the next one.
Okay, we do have a question from Princess.
Yeah.
She says she has a question on production application. As a tier 3, are we supposed to upload anything on the production companies or individual experience? So, I mean, I don't know, Yolanda, if you want to take that, but I think it's quite similar to the question that was just asked.
Yeah, I mean, if you're applying as so the good thing about PSP is that it really allows for people with experience and without experience. So you can apply with your company if you haven't really produced anything, but I would advise that you look at producing or applying, if it's for production in particular, a short film or a made for TV, which are the things that you would have ordinarily been, qualified for as someone who hasn't made a film, rather than go for a feature, because then the experience of the team will also be taken into account. Because when we evaluate, we look at the project, we look at the jobs created, but then we also look at the budget as well as the other things. So I would say apply and be and do say that you're a tier 3, because by the sound of that question, you are a tier 3, so that you are then evaluated with other tier 3, and it shouldn't be a problem.
And then Ayanda CBC says, if you currently have an ongoing project with the Nfvf, will you be eligible to apply for the stimulus fund? And yes, you can apply for the stimulus fund if you have an ongoing project. From Mo Quincy, can a company or individual apply for more than one stream? Yes, you can apply for more than one stream. But obviously you must just remember that your application must be relevant for the stream. And then Unati Nom Kachule, sorry about that, Unati Nom Kachule says, since there is no funding cap, is it possible to be offered more than you required on your proposal? Because businesses limit themselves with their fear of being rejected for asking for too much. So there isn't a funding cap. You can ask for what you would normally ask for throughout the normal Nfvf funding cycle. However, we cannot approve you for funding that is above the amount that you applied for. So in other words, you have to apply, when you apply for the amount that you're applying for, you have to make sure that your budget merits your application and it merits the number of jobs that you want to create. So if you apply for 700,000, the advisory panel evaluating your project can either approve you for the full 700,000, or they can approve you for less. What they can't do is approve you for more than the 700,000. So I see your question when you're saying, there's fear of being rejected. you know, ultimately you're going to have to ask for the amount that you want, you know, reach for the moon and hope to fall among the stars, or reach for the moon and hope to aim there. So I think take advantage of the fact that there's no cap, but I say that with caution, in the sense that, you know, you want to apply with a budget that you know how to justify and how to meet the requirements of. Stream 1, you know, it's the creation of those jobs within a year. Stream 2 or 3, the creation of jobs, at least 10 jobs within 3 months. So make sure that you apply for the amount that you want, understanding that there's no cap, but make sure that your budget just makes sense for the project and the number of jobs that you're creating.
Okay, I see there's a dialogue around people not being able to sort of like, I'd say if you have a problem with the system in terms of like someone is saying that I'm on the website, my username, it says it's inactive. I think these are all really technical questions. I think we're trying to take as many questions as possible without necessarily, so what I would say is, Tofi, please, Tosi, sorry, please just email PSP@navf.co.za to get the assistant, because then there are people that can assist you with the project. And also there's a discussion board once you've started getting into the system, where you can quickly just say what your concern is on the discussion board, and there should be somebody who's able to feed you with an answer. So hopefully that, because I can't take you through the system right now, it's not in front of me, but if you do go into the email and say this is what you're struggling, then someone might be able to take you, will be able rather to take you through the actual system on a deal. Again, try and do this today or tomorrow morning. Don't do it like towards the towards or Friday. And then there's another question around what is the difference between the budget and proposed project and a detailed budget that needs to be uploaded? Hopefully these are not in the same. So basically, I think the thing that we want, because we are looking for projects across both projects that don't have funding and projects that may have funding, I'd say the most important document that you need to have is make sure that your budget is as detailed as possible, like as in like account for everything. Do not give us a summarized budget, because then we are unable to sort of like read what goes into your project and what sets it apart from the next one. So try and give us a detailed budget, accounting for all your costs. And then the other one is, if you're then saying that the stimulus is not your only funder, that you already have existing funds elsewhere, or funds that are coming in, and you of course need to prove that you can produce the project within this year, meaning that you must have letters of intent. Then in that regard, we would require a finance plan, and the finance plan is to really say, I am getting 100 Rand from the stimulus fund, and I'm getting 2 Rand from whoever, and I'm getting 50 Rand from whoever else, and altogether my budget is 152 Rand. But we need to show us where you're getting the 52 Rand if your entire budget is 152, other than the 100 Rand you're getting from us. The other thing to also take into account is, if you are going to include the DTIC as part of your finance plan, please note that the DTIC cannot be able to rebate the PSP, because it is a grant, and therefore you can't government cannot rebate you on a grant, because it's free money that you don't actually have to pay back. So if you are going to have the DTIC as part of your finance plan, please note that then they will not be covering the portion that comes from the stimulus fund. I think that is, I don't know, Onke, if you have other questions.
So I see another question.
Oh,
I see
sorry.
another question from Temba Koza. As part of PSP, do you consider funding the development of reality TV formats?
Okay, just to repeat the email again, it's psp@navf.co.za. And then if you are having like a technical issue that is really technical, you can also extend it to the other to the application's email, which is the usual NAVF application. And then in terms of, just repeat that question, Onke, again.
So do you cover the development of reality TV formats?
No, so in this round, we only funding production. So unless you are coming to us applying for a pilot, which means it's also, we would count as production, we're not covering development, just because it's the development doesn't give us the required number of job that is needed to be able to deliver on the PSP.
Gudulego Nep does say that, thank you for clarifying, but I wish the webinar came a bit sooner. And thank you for that note. And Gulego, the call did open on the 24th of June. So we have actually been conducting roadshows throughout the country. But we'll definitely take your note going forward. We've been conducting roadshows throughout the provinces, trying to spread the message far and wide. But we'll definitely take your note going forward. Thank you for that. Tsunisani Shibambu says, for training, should the training be accredited, and should the facilitators be registered assessors or moderators, or can it just be experienced people?
So for the training, your facilitators do have to either be accredited, and if they're not accredited, that's still fine. So they have to have at least 10 years specializing in that field. So if you are doing a training in cinematography, then you need to make sure that that person has been working in that field for the past at least 10 years specializing. The same goes for directors and writers and so forth. So you can have people who are not necessarily accredited, because in that case, what they're doing is it's them being able to transfer a skill, you know, but they might not necessarily be playing in the training field every day. But we believe that at least if they have 10 years specializing, then they do have a skill to impart. So it's really from an accreditation of your facilitators, it's one or the other.
And then from ReStreamBot, I think I'm pronouncing it, yeah. So ReStreamBot, Oneo Iman, sorry. Our production company has 2 directors. Is it advisable for me to send in the application as a Black female versus the other director who is a Black male, but holds a slightly, didn't complete the question, but essentially, is it advisable for me to send the application as a Black female, or as for the application to be sent through the other director who's a Black male?
So I mean, we can't advise you which one to send your application in. I think that really is up to you and your partner, but also who, you know, maybe has more strength around administration and making sure that that project is submitted. Because when it comes to evaluating the company will be evaluated based on who the directors are. And then obviously we do look at other things like transformation, but transformation is a number of things. So I suppose I throw that question back at you in terms of who you can who can apply. And then there's a question, and Morena, I'm not sure if I'm really getting your question. You say, we are allowed to do indirect jobs. So I'm going to try and answer that as generic as possible. I think the one thing that we kind of like all know is that the film industry, you know, has a multiplier effect, right? Where we employ people directly in the industry and also supporting structures, you know, whether it be they in catering and transport and all these others. So in my understanding of the question, those might be the indirect jobs. I think just apply for the project, because I think with this stream, our ability as this industry is to make jobs or to create jobs is through a project, right? So all the resources then that you're going to require for that project be in you know, so I think those are the jobs you are creating, right? So I suppose the answer is yes, if your understanding of indirect is my understanding, which I've just tried to articulate what my understanding of your question was right now. Okay.
From Lutzi, Yolanda, we also have our advisory panel members allowed to apply for the project funding. Yes, they are. But I mean, when it comes to, I mean, if your project gets to the phase of being evaluated during the meeting, you know, you would have to just recluse yourself from that process. But essentially, yes, to that question. We have another comment from Diane. Hey, thank you, Diane. From Nikita. Nkatu from Facebook. I mistakenly registered twice. How do I delete the other project on the portal?
So, I mean, if you have, so the system administrators should be able to pick up the project if it's the same project, but I would still say, look at so which of your project is complete in terms of the application process. And then you can, again, just send an email to psp@nfvf.co.za and then just say that, okay, these are the project numbers. So you would need to give them the project numbers to be able to say, disregard this one. So that's the simplest way of being able to take care of that. But thank you for applying. And then there's okay.
There's a question from Rhinus. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is it possible or allowed for your salaries to be 70% of your budget? So okay.
I mean, again, I would, it really depends on what your project is and how it's set up. And when you say your salaries, is it your salary? Because I think also as the producer in the project, or the key creative, or the management in the case of marketing and training, you as the management team, 70% of the budget can go to your guys' salaries, right? Because you really have to be fair about the whole process, right? Because yes, one, as my colleague had said, it is an incentive. We might not give you everything that you require, but if it's skewed towards like just the management getting the money, and not necessarily the whole training, then or not necessarily the whole team, then that doesn't really help with the job creation, because it's about being able to create as many jobs as feasible. But obviously your production will incur other costs. You might incur venue hire in the case of training. You might incur some marketing money when it comes to marketing and distribution, and so you can is to try and ensure that it reflects your production. So I hope that answers it, but you cannot be, with just speaking with the key management, you can't be taking up 70% of the budget. That's not the intention of this program.
Nelis Anglobo says, for stream 1, do all the key creative team members need to be confirmed, or can some of them, like the line producers, be one of the jobs that will be created? So in other words, do the jobs need to be confirmed right now at the application process?
So we do advise that you try and get as many jobs confirmed as much as possible, especially when it comes to things like profiling of people. For instance, if you're going to say you are looking for female, and the job is taking place in Kwakwa, and then all of a sudden after you're like, oh well, now I'm going for a male who's in Joburg, that really changes the dynamics of the job profiling that we're looking for. So I'd say try and get as many people, try and get it as close to what you want as possible. And in the case where you're not able to, you still need to be able to then give us a profile to be like, you're going to be employing either a male or a female, and then post that you still then need to give us a person or a name that matches that. Like in other cases, we always advise, especially with the last one, that if you're going to replace, for instance, a female, try and, if you no longer have that female you had confirmed because either a few things took longer than they should, try and still replace that person with another female. Hopefully that answers that. But again, we do encourage you that you submit with the application, submit as many CVs as possible, especially with the key creative. I think when it comes to, below the line and other people, a lot of the things might change, but when it comes to key creatives, and above the line people, please try and ensure that that doesn't change a lot. So, yeah.
Nonkulule Gomashi says, do theatre productions apply to stream 1, or is it only for film productions? So this is, oh, do you wanna? It's fine.
No, I think you got this one.
So I mean, as Nfvf, we fund film primarily. There are other entities that are doing PESP, one of which is the National Arts Council. So they're also running PSP. Their call is also currently out. So theatre productions then would fall under that. We do have a question here around from Ayanda CBC on Facebook. Does asking facilitators to have 10 years of experience not impact the economy more on job creation? I'm not certain how this is meant to improve in the SA youth unemployment. So with the advisory panel members, I think the key thing to understand is that for the project evaluation, in order to make sure that there is really like a fruitful and a valuable and fair evaluation of the projects, we're looking for people who have as much experience in the industry as possible and who, in hindsight, have the reality and knowledge of what it really is like to work in the industry, right? Because everyone has a great idea of something, but sometimes you need the expertise of project evaluators, and not even sometimes in this project they're key, because that independent panel of advisory panel members are the ones who then score the projects individually and then come together on panel advisory meetings and deliberate on the scores that they've done. And the expertise are key because, you know, obviously you really want people who have the experience, right? And just know the reality of what it means to bring a project to full term and what is realistically possible. What is important to us, and that doesn't mean that we are not interested in any youth engagement here, right? We do recognize that youth officially are up to the age of 35. So, I mean, and you could be someone who has that 8 to 10 years experience, right? And still be considered a youth in the context of South Africa. But, you know, which would definitely enable you to apply, but equally what's important to us is the diversity. So what's equally as crucial for us is making sure that we have advisory panel members that are from all provinces, right? Because they typically tend to come from Gauteng and the other two metros, Durban and Cape Town, but more Gauteng, Cape Town, Durban in that order. So it's very important for us to make sure that diversity doesn't just speak to age, that it speaks to demographics as well, that it speaks to gender, just to make sure that you have that balance. And, you know, for applications that come from Limpopo right now, if I think of the number of applications we have from Limpopo, it's tracking better than KZN and better than the Western Cape. Then, you know, sometimes we run the risk of having a disconnect in terms of the projects that are approved for funding. If you do not have enough representation on the advisory panel members of people from Limpopo, right? Now, luckily, the advisory panel members that we typically have enough experience and understand the importance of making sure that you have productions that are approved for recipients from Limpopo, film festivals that are mounted, you know, in areas in Limpopo, public screenings, training, and development initiatives that happen in the province. So, and that sometimes that comes, you know, with broad experience. So luckily we have that, but the thing is, luck is not necessarily always a plan, and it's always just much better to make sure that you have as broad a advisory panel member as possible, broad in terms of age, also in terms of demographics, also in terms of gender representation. So if you also look at the requirements for advisory panel members, the list is not prescriptive to absolutely everything, right? That or is quite important, because sometimes you really win when there's a mixed bag of people who are good in a number of things. So if you intend to apply an advisory panel member and you want to give it a try, go for it, right? Don't discount yourself. If you know that you can prove your expertise in one way or the other, submit your nomination letter. You can nominate yourself. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone nominating on your behalf. You can nominate yourself together with your CV. You email it to pesp@nfvf.co.za, and the NFVF will be in contact with you. So it's not the process with funding that you do through Praxis. It's literally your nomination letter and your CV that you submit. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, and I think, I'm looking at the time and I think we may have run out of time, but I'm hoping that we've answered as many questions as possible. And then obviously, if you still do have any other questions, please remember that email address, psp@navf.co.za. And then for technical issues, you're in the system, you're struggling and you're not able to sort of like chat on the chat box, which is faster and quicker, then you may email our applications team then to be able to assist you. Again, I will try and express this again. Please try and apply before the deadline. When we're all trying to apply exactly at 5 o'clock, sometimes 10 minutes becomes 15 minutes in the system, and now it's 5 minutes past 5 and you're not able to apply anymore because the system literally shuts down. It's not even a person behind it. It literally just shuts down at exactly on the hour. And I think for people from the other provinces, all the underserviced provinces, Eastern Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, Mpumalanga, Northwest, we really encourage you to apply and try and put your name forward. This is supposed to have a wider spread as possible. And do not be fear the fact that you might not have the relevant experience in the industry. You start small and then you go all the way up. And other than that, I think Anke, that is it. I think we will try, and I think maybe the questions that maybe have not been answered, I don't know, Anke, if I'm overcommitting to say we'll try and answer them on the chats. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us and having a dialogue with us around PSP. We're looking forward to all your applications.
Yeah, thank you so much. I could have to reiterate Yolanda's words. I share the same sentiments. We really appreciate the fact that you could join us for the session. Yeah, and we hope that it was helpful. We're really looking forward to as many applications as possible. We really want to exhaust this budget and give away as much money as possible. We do understand the impact that COVID has had on the industry. So to do this is really just, I guess, a privilege from our end. So we wish you all the very best. Good luck. For those of you who have registered, we encourage you to complete your application. Remember, a registered application stands absolutely no chance of being reviewed by an advisory panel. You have to complete your application. Those of you who haven't done in either of the process, register and literally in the same breath do your application and complete it. We wish you the very best, and we hope that as many people get applied for funding and definitely more people than under PSP1. And we hope to see you too soon for the next round of PSP after the 1st of April 2023. We know that we've been allocated 159.3 million for that iteration of PSP. So just bear in mind that even with your application now, there is some consistency that through the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we hope to offer you as film practitioners. So all the best to everyone applying, and thank you so much.
When stories are no longer told and retold, the culture fades and the people are forgotten. We are not shy about remembering out loud our story. The National Film and Video Foundation, as an agency of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, was created to ensure the equitable growth of South Africa's film and video industry. Our vision is embedded in an inclusive, diverse, and sustainable audiovisual ecosystem that tells South African stories to local and global audiences. We are the custodian of South Africa's film and video industry, committed to ensuring its equitable growth. The Nfvf loves South African film and lets stories speak. Ours is mission towards greatness as we seek to collaborate and enable the development and promotion of a transformed and thriving audiovisual industry. To increase the number of South African films and previously disadvantaged individuals involved in curating and producing them, to increase the number of those trained in our beloved industry, to increase audience access to our films, to promote our film industry locally and abroad, to promote social cohesion through film, ultimately, our nation's stories.
Mina ngumluleki.
Ngikusaba Mluleki. Uwazi uzohlala.
Wat verstaan jy nie? Jy hoort nie nie. Jy's 'n immigrant in jou eie land.
Ours is a mandate that allows us to be an enabler of the audiovisual sector by providing funding in the areas of production and development, marketing and distribution, and education and training. Through this, we empower the broad spectrum of filmmakers, from the experienced to those with limited experience and new entrants.
Let us walk to Johannesburg.
Wrong yonke lento le. Yonke lento le ayilunganga.
Listen, one. Don't think. Just jump.
Ours is a directive that implores us to be a thought leader by impacting industry growth through policies and driving a knowledge hub through relevant research. A story is every day. Its power, timeless. Its landscape, endless. In South Africa, that story is shaped through a broad spectrum of thriving locations, where Gauteng is the gateway to film locations and production support. The Western Cape, a globally leaning location hotspot, and KwaZulu-Natal, the kingdom on which our stories are staged. The Nfvf has ensured that authentic South African stories are shared with diverse global audiences through 10 co-production treaties: United Kingdom, Canada, Italy, Germany, France, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Netherlands, Brazil, with 144 produced since the dawn of the new democracy, most notably United Kingdom, Canada, Germany. Our story isn't told by us alone. We accelerate our impact through key partnerships such as those with the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission, the Gauteng Film Commission, and the Eastern Cape Development Corporation, which all offer grants and equity financing. The Industrial Development Corporation, which can invest up to 49% equity in commercially viable stories.
Sawubona ma.
Oh, Naledi.
Hey! Wangibiza uNaledi mina. Angisiyo uNaledi mina.
San julle kantinoene hierdie man.
Ja. Ja, so moet.
Sal nie meer omdraai nie.
There is relief in storytelling and gratitude in receiving. Always, it is rewarding, with the Department of Trade and Industry providing competitive incentives for shooting productions in South Africa. South Africa's story has transformed, reformed, and reignited a backdrop for shared experience and common differences. Blood Diamond. Safe House. Long Walk to Freedom. Dark Tide. Invictus. Black Sails. It's a melding of diverse cultures, of vibrant people, dreams of a rainbow, set against a thriving canvas, colored by an audiovisual industry with profitable returns, in deepening relationships, bridging divides, and platforming South Africa's stories. We see ourselves united, family, friends, communities, all. Let the stories live on.